Census records put our ancestors in time and place. But what else can we find from those census records, especially the 1950 census? I'll be showing you in this video. Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Lisa, and if you are brand new here, this channel focuses on helping you to find your ancestors, grow that family tree, and well, not be overwhelmed in the process. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, you're in the right place. Now, as a genealogy researcher or family history enthusiast, you are likely very familiar with the census records. You use them to track your ancestor through time, as well as track migration patterns. So it's important to understand the nuances behind the information that was collected, as well as how that information was actually collected. Now, as we start talking about that 1950 census, let me know in the comments if you are looking for somebody specific in that 1950 census. One of the first things that I would like for you to consider when it comes to researching in the 1950 census is what areas were actually covered, which areas were actually enumerated by the census takers. You might be surprised that in addition to the continental US, what US territories were also included in that census. Now remember, in 1950, Alaska and Hawaii were not even states yet. But the US also had other territories as well that they included in this 1950 census. Let's talk about the areas that were covered in that census. So in 1950, certainly you had the continental US. If you were researching your ancestors in the continental US, you're good to go, right? They also enumerated territories such as Alaska and Hawaii. They enumerated American Samoa, Guam, the Panama Canal Zone, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. So if you're researching ancestors in any of those territories, you have the opportunity to see if you can find them in the 1950 census. The 1950 census is actually quite similar to the 1940 census in the actual questions that were asked by the census takers. However, there were some differences that you definitely want to make note of. Now, in the 1950 census, 6 individuals who were 14 years or older are asked an additional set of questions down at the bottom of the census page. Now in 1940 we saw that, but there were only 2 individuals that were listed in those sample questions. Also take note that that last line for those 6 sample individuals actually asked things a little bit differently. Now in the 1950 census, only those 6 samples lines at the bottom asked the individuals where they lived the previous year. But in the 1940 census, everyone was asked where they resided in 1935. But the implication here is that if you have your ancestors' location in 1940 census, you know where they were in 1935. And then when you find them again in 1950 census, you know where they were in 1949. So that gives you, the researcher, the opportunity to find that ancestor in, I guess what I would almost call the off years of the census, but 1935, 1940, 1949, and 1950. It's really nice as a researcher to have those additional timeline data points that you can plot out and really see, did your ancestors stay in the same area, or did they make a major or small or minor move? When it comes to military service, 1940 and 1950 do differ in how they document that. In 1940, only the sample questions were asked if they were a military veteran, or if they were the wife or widow of a military veteran, or if they were a child under the age of 18 of a military veteran. In 1950, only the men in those 6 sample lines at the bottom were asked if they had served in the military. According to the National Archives site, the instructions and trainings for the 1950 enumerators for that census was much more extensive than in previous years. You can actually view the enumerators instruction booklets and trainings on the National Archives website, and I will link that below in the description. It's fascinating reading, and not just interesting because it's to see what they were told and how they were instructed to collect that census, but it has bearing and helps you understand the information that they were collecting. Now, it will be interesting, I think, from a researcher standpoint, that given this extensive training that the enumerators had, Will we see fewer errors in that 1950 census? Only time's going to tell for that one. Okay, so we are going to talk about Americans living abroad. But let me ask you really quick. If you are as excited about this 1950 census and the chance to see these new records and really get into this new set of records that's coming out, hit that subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner. That way you will make sure you are notified when I post new videos here for you on the Are You My Cousin YouTube channel. Did you have ancestors living abroad in 1950, or even relatives, or perhaps yourself? We have to consider that. Would we actually find them enumerated on the census? And they were handled in a bit different manner than the general population. In 1950, for military personnel and Americans living abroad working for the U.S. government, a separate form was used to enumerate them. That form is called the P5 Overseas Census Report. This information on individuals living abroad, whether the military, whether they were serving in that, working for the U.S. government abroad, was only collected for statistical purposes and reports. They are not included in that general population census that we are looking at usually from a genealogy perspective. Now, if your ancestors were living abroad, but not part of the military or working for the U.S. government, we will not find them on that 1950 census. Unlike the 1921 census of England and Wales, which does include everyone that was in the country on their census night. In other words, everyone, anybody staying in a hotel, a visitor, a traveler, a tourist, anyone was enumerated in that 1921 census for England and Wales. But in 1950 U.S. Census, that is not the case. The U.S. Census records do not enumerate visitors or tourists or travelers in that normal manner. According to the NARA website, in 1950, approximately 2.3 million students were enrolled in a college or university. So in some respects, many students actually had two home addresses: their home where they grew up or with their parents, as well as their college or university address. So how did the 1950 census actually account for that fact? And how did they enumerate college students who were not living at home? In previous census years, there had been a lot of back and forth about how they would handle college students and enumerating them. However, in 1950, it was decided definitively that they would enumerate college or university students at their college residences. And they continue to do that going forward in the census record. So the 1950 census is actually a good place for you to learn a bit more about your ancestor or your relatives' educational history and where they attended a college or university. Don't assume that you could have missed them in your census research if you do not find that college-age student at home in their parents' home where you would expect to find them. If you suspect that they were college age or may have attended college elsewhere, dig a little deeper into that census record and see if you can find them. So with the 1950 census, what questions were actually asked of the individuals? After all, we're genealogy researchers, and this is really what we're there for, right? I'm going to give you a sample of questions from the 1950 census, and then I'm going to give you information about where you can go and find the entire list for those questions. Here is a sample of the questions that were asked by the enumerators in that 1950 census. Certainly, name, relation to the head of household, race, gender, age on the last birthday, marital status. With that, they're asking, is the individual married, widowed, divorced, or separated? State or country of birth, the naturalization status of the individuals born abroad. You'll also notice in this naturalization category that somebody could put the term AP, meaning a child was born to American-born parents abroad. For those individuals who are 14 years of age or older, information about their occupation and their industry was collected as well. And then, of course, we have those 6 sample questions down at the bottom. We all have our fingers crossed that our ancestors or relatives are included in those 6, where we can learn more about previous living locations as well as that educational status. Now, for a full list of questions that were asked by the enumerators to the individuals, I'm going to put a link down in the description to the National Archives website where they have the entire list spelled out for you. I want to share with you one of my favorite tips when it comes to researching in census records, and especially going forward into the 1950 census, as this is one that obviously we have not had access to before, as well as therefore we're just not as familiar with the columns. Take your time. One of the biggest mistakes that we can make as genealogy researchers, particularly when we're new to looking into a new record collection, is that we can rush through. We are so excited. We find that ancestor's name and we're like, yay, we got him. We got the family, we got the birth dates that we can infer. Okay, we got it all. Let's go. Let's move on to the next one. Let's find the next one on the list. Take time to really understand what your ancestor is saying in that 1950 census. There are lots of stories that you can find there. Look at all of the information. I always tell people to read every single column heading and understand what that means. Gather the information from every column, because that's going to tell you about your ancestor. You're going to get a better sense of who they were, and that's eventually going to lead you to new records, hopefully, and help you avoid some of those brick walls that sometimes we inadvertently create for ourselves because we're going too fast in the records. So what I'm going to tell you is, do not grab your ancestor and run. Take your time in that record, guys. Now, if you want to learn more about the 1950 census and census research in general, check out the videos I have showing on the screen for you now.